Welcome back and thank you for being with us. We're going to continue talking about the Eid and the celebration of the end of Ramadan. And with us this morning is Samahat Sheikh Dr. Mahdi Hazari. Good morning, Sheikh.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Alaikum. And thank you for being with us. Happy end of Ramadan. This has been really a good journey. The weather has been nice and we've enjoyed it so far. Dr. Hazari, every year or most years rather, some communities celebrate Ramadan either before other communities a day or two, a day at least one day, because the month either 29 or 30. What are your thoughts about this? And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Islamic calendar. Why do we follow it and its significance?
Yes, so we know that the months that are assigned, particularly when it comes to religious practice, are going to follow the lunar calendar. Those months are either going to be 29 days or 30 days, as you just mentioned. Now, I think the differences that are going to occur, particularly now as we are at the end of the month of Ramadan, are how do we determine that the next month has started? And I think this is where you will find differences, not only amongst Muslim groups, but even within the sect itself, within specific sects. So whether that is the Ahl Sunnah sect, or it is the Shia sect, there are going to be differences, and it all rests on the fact that the interpretation of Islamic law and how you determine the beginning of the next lunar month is going to vary amongst different opinions of what the law is.
Absolutely. So we do follow for Islamic purposes, and some Muslim countries do follow the Hijri calendar, and the Hijri calendar is the lunar calendar. How different is that from the Gregorian calendar?
Yes, so it's 11 days shorter, and the Hijri calendar essentially is going to move then according to the Gregorian calendar. So what was essentially April 20th or 21st being the day of Eid in 2023, in 2024 will be 11 days earlier, and it will continuously move as the years go on. And so this is just the cycle that we continuously remember. Those of us who have been fasting for many decades know that it has moved from one season to the next.
You know, it's interesting. When I was a young boy, I used to say, why couldn't it be like in the winter?
Yes.
And then, the more I thought about it, and subhanAllah, and I said how fair that system is, because winter to us will be summer to somebody else.
That's right. In Australia,
summer, yeah,
southern.
yeah. And
Yes.
Summer to somebody else would be, and then summer to us would be winter to somebody else. So having it move this way, there's a lot of fairness to it. That what do you think about that?
Yes, not only fairness, Allah is just, He is fair, but I think certainly it trains the body to different seasons. So fasting in the summer is very different from fasting in the winter. And in this sense, you are cultivating an ability to be patient through any season, to realize the suffering and the hunger and the pain of those who don't have what we have in any season, in any climate, in any circumstance. And I think there is a great lesson to be learned from that.
Absolutely. So how do we determine the, what's the relationship, when we're determining the days, the lunar calendar, what's the relationship between the moon, the sun, the earth, and all of that?
Yes, so the sun, the role the sun plays for us is really, for a day-to-day purpose, is your prayers. When it rises, when it's dawn to begin with, when it rises, when it then goes past its zenith, and then when it sets and nighttime sets in, all of those are determining the times of your daily salat, your prayer. When it comes to the moon, the sighting of the crescent at the beginning of the lunar month, that's going to establish specific days. This is particularly important for two occasions. One is the month of Ramadan, in which we are obliged to fast. The other are the days of Hajj, when we go for pilgrimage. So you need to know when you need to be at Arafat, for instance, or when you go to Mash'ar al-Haram, or some of the other acts. You need to know the specific days on which you're going to perform that. So the sighting of the moon then becomes very important, because you're establishing specific rituals or acts of worship that need to be done. And here, again, is where the differences are going to lie in how you interpret Islamic law, apply it, and then determine that the moon was actually sighted to commence the new lunar month.
When scholars, religious scholars, are talking about these issues, they don't just depend on the religious interpretation, they also incorporate science. And then there's science to this. Could you tell us a little bit more about how they incorporate science into the rulings?
Yeah, so you said it perfectly, that there is a means by which science, or really specifically the collection of data and using data to establish a certain framework by which we can then say with certainty or contentment that sighting of the moon has occurred. So what does that mean? Well, we know that the crescent moon for the beginning of the lunar month must be established by sighting with the naked eye. This is the predominant view of most of the scholars, irrespective of whether they are Shi'i scholars or even Sunni scholars. There are some who rely on calculation, but the naked eye is the one that is relied upon. So then where does calculation fall into this, or astronomical data or science? Well, you want to be able to pinpoint where you might be able to see the moon, where it is most visible, the angles at which it is most visible, looking at its luminosity, how visible will it be, meaning how bright is it, the regions where you would have the greatest chance of seeing it. This is where astronomical data and projections of where the moon or the crescent is going to be located can improve your ability to sight it and hence predict the beginning of the next month. The other thing that we do as the Shia, as the followers of our juristic opinion, is to use the astronomical data to predict the horizons or the parts of the world where even if the moon is not sighted, if it is close enough to an area or a land where the moon was sighted, then certainty can be used or established such that that land in which it was not sighted would also be included as a region in which the month had begun. Because of the size of the moon, because of the projected luminosity, its angular distance, its altitude above the horizon, people can say, using this data, we are fairly sure that, yes, it would have been sighted, and we can start the next month.
Now, why do we need to sight it by the naked eye?
Yes, because the Quran mentions this. The Quran mentions in quite detail, and then there are other traditions, authentic traditions, that point to the fact that it should be sighted with the naked eye. Now, the beauty of this system is that irrespective of where you are, you can sight the moon. So not everyone has access to binoculars or a telescope or even astronomical calculations. Someone who lives in the wilderness maybe, or is traveling in the desert and doesn't have access to these things, can merely go outside at sunset and look for the moon. This allows it to be an applicable system to any human being without need for professional skills, expertise, or even tools to be able to establish the next month, which is the beauty of Allah's system.
Absolutely, which is independence and fairness.
Yes, absolutely. And really allowing each human being to be their own pocket, or their independent unit, to be able to practice religion and not necessarily have to rely on someone else. So
Absolutely.
The beauty of it is that if they see the crescent moon on their own, they don't have to rely on a jurist or on a scholar or anybody else, because they saw it themselves. They can move forward. The next day is Eid for them.
Absolutely. You know, the more I think about it sometimes, and I feel the whole idea is to create a believer, not a follower. And a believer is someone who really, because this is an autonomous relationship between us and the Lord. And you know, being a believer is much higher position than being a follower. You know, some people's like, oh, well, whatever the sheikh said, I'll do. But you know, it is incumbent on us to really take matters into our hands and participate. You know, I mean, I still remember one of my children, when we went, because we go sighting every year, even if it's a cloudy, we still go. I want him to learn this tradition, because I used to go with my grandfather, and it was so gratifying when I was able one year to see it. I was one of the few. Of course, I was a child, and they said, they were happy for me and they congratulate me, but I didn't count because I was a child. But and one year, one of my children saw, and it was the sighting was. I mean, she still talks about it till today. So it's really wonderful, and I would love for our community to do more and for our scholars to do, like invite people to go and see the moon and all of that. Um, I'd like you to address one thing quickly, if you don't mind, is that this is not an easy decision. There is a committee in North America of scholars who really, you may spend the whole night tonight trying to determine, what if and what if not. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So there is a Crescent Committee that's part of the Council of Shia Muslim Scholars of North America, that essentially networks and connects with people all over the continent, not just in the United States, but Canada as well, and essentially tries to receive as much feedback as possible. I know people contact me personally to say that they've seen it. They send me pictures verifying that they had seen it. So this is continuously done. Not only is it the fact that you need to verify that it was seen, but that the source is trustworthy. So that is very important. The source that is providing you with this witnessing is one that can be trusted. Because again, the next step is having to fast or not fast and fulfilling a religious obligation, which is quite important. And so the committee will certainly be working, and even tonight, I imagine no announcements or any preliminary announcements will not come before 11 p.m. or midnight even, because of the West Coast. And certainly the process of collecting information is just, it's rigorous and it's extremely robust.
Absolutely. And what are the chances of being sighted in North America today or tonight?
Yeah, so admittedly, I'm not an expert necessarily on moon sighting, but based on what I understand of the arc of visibility, North America, almost all of North America, pretty much 95% of the continental United States in particular, falls into a region or an arc where it is only, the crescent will only be visible with an optical aid, meaning it'll be difficult to sight. And when I looked it up, the luminosity of the crescent is below 1%, which means it's going to be quite low. There are parts of North America.
Low on the horizon, you mean?
No, the luminosity of it, how bright.
Okay. The light in the moon. Yeah.
The light of it. That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So it'll be quite low, below 1%. And usually they say it needs to be somewhere between 2 to 3% for it even to be seen. That's not to say that someone can't see it, because it may be high enough above the horizon where someone will spot it. But these are the details that it's not going to be easily visible without an optical aid. For most of United States, most of Canada, parts of the northeastern parts of the continent, like New York and the very eastern parts of Canada as well, it will not be sightable at all, they're saying. So it's outside the arc. So that's what the arc is showing. Now, again, until we actually go out and look for it, we won't know, but this is just the astronomical projections.
Do we know where to look?
Yes. So essentially, people know in what parts of the sky to go up and to look. Usually they recommend that people should go up to altitude. So if you live in an area with hills or mountains, then get up there maybe 10, 15 minutes before the time of sunset and start to examine and start to look. Again, the waxing moon that then appears above the horizon, the astronomical calculations differ on how soon after sunset it's there, how long it lasts in the horizon. Sometimes it only lasts 40 minutes. Sometimes it'll last 5 minutes and it's gone. You can't even see it. So they say get up early, right near sunset, just before sunset, and start to look and see what you can find. And sometimes you'll catch it. You'll see the faint crescent sitting there, but within a few minutes, it'll be gone, unfortunately.
So are there any sources where people can go out there and know where to look instead of start looking all over the, around the sun?
Yes, I think there are websites. I am unsure as to specifically which websites provide that information, but NASA, the federal agency, provides this sort of information where you can look in what part of the sky. There is also a website out of England that allows you to determine the location, approximate location of where the crescent moon will be located based on your geographic position. So if you are in Dearborn, where to look, if you are in New York, where to look, and approximately the angle above the horizon with which you should look. That also they can suggest to you.
Yeah, because I remember when I used to go with my grandfather to a specific town nearby, and they had a window on the third floor, and then they would calculate, the astronomers would calculate where to stand and look. So instead of looking all over the place, you're looking straight forward, and now all you have to do is whether you see it or not, which makes it a lot easier, assuming
Yeah. The sky
visibility
is
is
so
there.
big.
Yeah, and assuming that there are no clouds.
Agreed.
So,
Yes, absolutely. If there's no obstacles, then that makes it simpler. But then certainly by being able to pinpoint the exact angle and the direction in the sky that you need to be looking, that really makes it much simpler, because then you can focus your attention in that one area.
Absolutely. What we're going to do is we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Please stay tuned. Welcome back, and thank you for being with us. We're talking to Dr. Hazari about sighting the moon, and this is the end of Ramadan, and I thank you for being with us. I just like to mention that this segment is being taped, so we appreciate if you try to call us and we're unable to answer your questions. This has been provided for informational purposes only. And every year we talk about the time of when is the Eid, how about the sighting and all that. We just wanted to bring in some expert information on how is that done. And tradition is important, and I would love for the tradition to continue, for us to go out there and sight the moon. How important is that?
Yes, it's the foundation of how we establish the start of the lunar month. And again, it is something that I think in this era with increased dependence on technology, increased dependence on science and the calculation of science, I think the message of Islam is don't forget the basic use of your faculties and the sight, the vision, the skills that Allah has put innately inside of you. Again, emphasizing the fact that human beings all over the world are not the same, that there are people who do not have access to scientific advancement or modern tools that can aid. And I think in that, there is maybe a sort of humility that stays within us, a connection to our roots, a connection to where we came from. And I don't mean what original country we came from, but the familial sort of tradition, our history, our heritage. And I think that is something that if we keep in our children and keep passing it on, it creates a depth, it creates a beauty inside of us that I hope we can continue to pass from generation to generation.
Absolutely. When I look at sometimes at the calendars at the beginning of Ramadan, and there are so many of them, each one is different. Now, these are calculations. Now, does that mean from an astronomy point of view, there are different calculations for the moon and all of that, or is it only like one calculation? Like if I go to NASA, I only find one calculation, or did you study that?
So just in my basic study of this, and again, my disclaimer is that I'm not an expert on astronomy or the calculations that are provided, but from my understanding, calculations are going to vary. So astronomical calculations on where the moon may be located in the sky, how bright it is, its distance from the sun, etc., its sightability. I mentioned to you how long the crescent remains in the sky. Some say 4 minutes, some say 10 minutes, some say 40. These are where the calculations are going to differ. And I think that's science. Science is built on a theory of what happens, but in the end, individual scientists or researchers establish their own means of calculating the target or the sort of the phenomenon they're trying to observe. And those calculations vary, maybe by a few degrees, maybe by a few minutes. And again, it's based on the scientist or the researcher who's established the algorithm to determine it.
Absolutely. What I like about it is, when I think about it more, is the fact, the participation, and how important is that. Now, since the calculations can differ, the only thing that can be certain, which is the itma'nan, and that is to see it, or people who are trusted to see it. And that's a huge factor.
Yes, exactly. And that is the whole point of not being able to use those calculations to say that the next month has started versus actually seeing the moon. The differences in astronomical calculations are such that a person cannot be content that the moon was actually sighted versus you going and seeing it. A person who's seen the crescent moon, they can tell you what it feels like, that you've actually seen it. It's there. You know it is there. And that creates a feeling inside of you that data and calculations cannot. They're not comparable. And again, aside from the feeling of connection to your heritage and this tradition, this rich tradition that you're carrying on, it creates inside of you certainty that, yes, I saw it, it was there, and the previous month has ended and the new month has started.
Absolutely. Is there anything I haven't asked you that people need to know?
No, so I would just add this, that I know it causes a great deal of heartburn that sometimes you have Eid falling on 2 days, and it is really not ideal. It is not something that we want necessarily, but it is the world in which we live. Again, because we have experts who are applying so much effort and energy to deriving Islamic law, using the tools that are available as appropriate in Islam, and coming up with an answer. And I think we all just have to be very respectful of each other. We have to be compassionate towards each other, whether fasting or celebrating the day of Eid, and be sort of understanding that this is the circumstance, and do the best with it as we can. Celebrate on 2 days if you have to celebrate. After fasting the previous day, celebrate 2 days of Eid, 3 days of Eid. It is a celebration. Make it momentous, and make of it the best you can, especially for your children, because this is our holiday. This is for us. And it is a source of blessing and just love in the community, which is what it should be.
Absolutely. And I love the idea of, sharing with people the idea of respect. We respect different religions, we respect different ideas, and this is time for us to, respect what we believe, even in the same small community. And it is between us and the Lord, and we should respect that.
Yes, well said. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us, and happy Eid to you, and whether you celebrate tomorrow or Saturday. So inshallah, we all celebrate tomorrow, but if we do celebrate tomorrow, that'd be 29, not 30.
That's correct. It will be 29.
Yeah, normally a month is 30. So if we celebrate on Saturday, that means we really fasted a whole month.
Yes, alhamdulillah. May Allah accept all of the fasts and all of the worship and fulfill your legitimate needs. Happy Eid to everybody.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your